You have been bleeding power your entire life and never even noticed the wound. Every argument where your voice rose, every conflict where you rushed to explain yourself, every confrontation where you chased closure like a beggar chasing coins thrown in the mud. You handed them your dignity. You handed them your control. You handed them the very weapon they used to carve you open. And the worst part, you did it willingly. You did it desperately. You did it while believing you were fighting back. You were not fighting. You were hemorrhaging. Weak men react and regret. They lie awake replaying every word they should not have spoken, every emotion they should not have revealed, every piece of themselves they should have kept locked in the vault. Powerful men understand something different, something ancient, something cold. They stay silent. And in that silence, they dominate absolutely. Tonight, you master the discipline of the sealed tongue. Tonight, you learn the 6 ways Machiavelli's prince would never speak in conflict. Once you grasp this, no argument, no confrontation, no provocation will ever extract another drop from you again. You will become what they cannot predict, what they cannot manipulate, what they cannot defeat. You will become the Prince of Silence. Niccolò Machiavelli spent his life observing the corridors of Florentine power. He watched princes rise and fall. He studied the mechanisms of courts where a single misplaced word could mean exile or execution. And in his observations, he noted something that most men never understand. The rulers who spoke least lasted longest. The princes who explained themselves invited contempt. The leaders who argued their positions revealed weakness that enemies catalogued for future use. In the courts of Renaissance Italy, silence was not absence. It was architecture. It was the construction of an impenetrable fortress around the self. Machiavelli wrote that men judge by appearances, and the appearance of unshakable calm is worth more than 1,000 reasoned arguments. Sun Tzu, centuries earlier in the war tents of ancient China, observed the same truth from the perspective of the battlefield. He wrote that all warfare is deception, and what greater deception exists than the warrior who gives nothing away? The general who reveals his thoughts reveals his strategy. The prince who explains his feelings explains his vulnerabilities. Most men today erupt like fools in conflict. They vomit their emotions. They spray their justifications. They chase validation from the very people who seek to destroy them. You will not be that man, not anymore, not ever again. Silence is your throne, and tonight you learn to sit upon it like the sovereign you were meant to be. Observe what unfolds in their mind when you withhold words in the heat of conflict. This is clinical. This is precise. This is the dissection of their psychological collapse. When they attack and you do not respond, the human brain cannot process the void. It is neurologically wired to expect reaction. It craves the feedback loop of stimulus and response. When you deny that response, you trigger something primal, something ancient, something deeply disturbing to their sense of control. First comes confusion. The brain scrambles to interpret the silence. Is he planning something? Is he unbothered? Is he more powerful than I realized? The confusion quickly mutates into anxiety. Their nervous system begins producing cortisol. Their heart rate elevates. Their thoughts begin to race and spiral. They start filling your silence with their own fears. They project their insecurities into the void you have created. And this is where the true devastation begins. They start to doubt their own attack. Perhaps they went too far. Perhaps they misjudged you. Perhaps they exposed themselves while you revealed nothing. They replay the confrontation. They draft messages they delete. They compose responses to words you never spoke. They wake at night wondering what you are thinking, planning, knowing. Your silence has taken residence in their skull like a parasite. It feeds on their uncertainty. It grows in the darkness of their doubt. They become obsessed with extracting a response, any response that might relieve the pressure of not knowing. But you give them nothing, absolutely nothing. And so they are left alone with the monster of their own imagination. You have become the silence that echoes in their skull. Inescapable, infinite, utterly devastating. 6 ways to wield silence as a blade in conflict. 6 ways Machiavelli's prince would never speak. 6 disciplines that separate the sovereign from the slave. 1. Do not respond to provocation with explanation. The moment you explain yourself, you position yourself beneath them. You accept the role of defendant. You grant them the authority of judge. Machiavelli observed that princes who justify their actions invite subjects to question those actions. The act of explanation implies the possibility that you could be wrong, that your position requires defense, that their opinion holds weight over your conduct. It does not. When provoked, the prince remains motionless. He watches. He waits. He lets the attacker exhaust themselves against the fortress of his indifference. Like a king who lets the court argue while he watches from shadow, you observe the conflict without entering it. Their provocation was designed to extract a response. Your silence denies them the victory they sought. This is how silence carves fear. 2. Do not match their emotional intensity. When they escalate, you descend into absolute calm. This is the technique of thermal contrast. Heat seeks heat. Rage seeks rage. When you deny them the matching energy, you create a psychological dissonance they cannot reconcile. Sun Tzu wrote of the principle of formlessness, becoming like water that cannot be grasped or struck. When they raise their voice, you lower yours. When they gesture wildly, you become still as stone. When they demand immediate response, you pause longer than is comfortable. The ancient Persian kings understood this. They would receive messengers bearing declarations of war with complete serenity, offering wine and pleasantries while empires threatened annihilation. The message was clear. Your aggression does not move me. Your threats do not register. You are noise, I am silence. This is how silence carves fear. 3. Do not chase closure or resolution. Weak men cannot tolerate unfinished conflict. They need the conversation to end cleanly. They need to know where they stand. They need the anxiety of uncertainty resolved. This need is a leash, and anyone who understands it can lead you anywhere they wish. The prince never chases closure. He lets conflicts remain open. He lets questions remain unanswered. He lets relationships exist in ambiguity. Machiavelli noted that uncertainty is a tool of control. When they do not know if you have forgiven them, forgotten them, or are planning retribution, they remain psychologically subordinate. They continue thinking about you. They continue fearing you. They continue granting you space in their mind that you never requested, but now occupy completely. Like a wound that never quite heals, your unresolved silence festers in their consciousness. This is how silence carves fear. 4. Do not reveal your next move through words. Everything you say in conflict is intelligence gathered against you. Every emotion you express is a map to your vulnerabilities. Every plan you announce is a strategy they can now counter. Sun Tzu was explicit. Let your plans be as dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. The prince never announces. He acts, he executes, he demonstrates, but he does not preview. When they demand to know what you are going to do, you say nothing. When they ask what you are thinking, you offer silence. When they probe for your intentions, you remain opaque as obsidian. They want information because information is power. Your silence is the vault that keeps your power locked away from those who would steal it. This is how silence carves fear. 5. Do not engage with their narrative or framing. They will attempt to define the conflict. They will tell you what you did. They will explain what you meant. They will construct a narrative where they are justified and you are guilty. The weak man argues with this narrative. He attempts to correct it. He fights on the battlefield they have chosen, using the weapons they have provided, under the rules they have established. He loses before he begins. The prince refuses to acknowledge their frame entirely. He does not argue that their interpretation is wrong. He does not offer an alternative narrative. He simply does not participate in the discussion of narratives at all. Like an emperor who refuses to acknowledge the existence of a rebellion by speaking its name, you deny their construction power by denying it attention. Your silence communicates something devastating. Your version of events is so irrelevant to me that I will not spend a single word addressing it. This is how silence carves fear. 6. Do not speak your pain or grievance aloud. This is the deepest discipline. This is where most men fail most catastrophically. When wounded, the weak man announces his wound. He tells them they hurt him. He expresses his disappointment, his anger, his betrayal. He believes this will change their behavior. It does not. It simply confirms the effectiveness of their weapon. Machiavelli understood that showing pain invites more pain. It marks you as penetrable. It proves their attacks are landing. It encourages repetition of the strategy that worked. The prince absorbs strikes without visible effect. He may bleed internally. He may note the injury for future reference. He may plan precise retribution for the appropriate moment. But externally he shows nothing. Like the ancient Spartan boys trained to let foxes gnaw their stomachs rather than cry out, you develop the capacity to receive wounds in absolute silence. Your pain is your private information. Your grievance is your strategic asset. Never convert them into words that arm your enemies. This is how silence carves fear. You now possess 6 blades most men will never sharpen. 6 disciplines that transform you from reactive fool to sovereign presence. Wield them coldly. Wield them without mercy. Wield them in utter silence. You no longer react. You no longer explain. You no longer bleed in conflict. These are not theories you have learned. These are architectures you will build into your very being. This is the moment you cease being the man who argues, who justifies, who chases, who needs. This is the moment you become the shadow that commands, the void that consumes, the silence that echoes in the skulls of everyone who ever thought they could provoke you into weakness. They will try again. They will attempt to extract the old version of you, the reactive one, the emotional one, the one who handed them power wrapped in desperate words. They will find nothing. They will find no entry point. They will find only the cold, impenetrable surface of a man who has mastered the ancient art of strategic absence. You are now untouchable. You are now silent. You are now sovereign. If this cut deep, if this reached the part of you that remembers every argument where you lost control, every conflict where you gave too much away, every confrontation where you became someone you hated, then inscribe in the comments. Write the words that seal this transformation. Write Prince of Silence. Let it mark the death of the reactive man and the birth of something colder, something quieter, something infinitely more powerful. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Activate notifications so you never miss another transmission from the shadows. Weak men will argue with the screen. They will construct objections. They will explain why this does not apply to them, why their situation is different, why speaking is sometimes necessary. And then they will scroll. They will change nothing. They will remain bleeding and wondering why they cannot stop the hemorrhage. Powerful men will act in silence. They will close this video and implement. They will enter their next conflict as something unrecognizable, something dangerous, something that cannot be provoked because it does not respond. Which one are you? The court awaits your answer. But the prince does not wait. The prince does not wonder. The prince sits in silence and lets the void do his work. In the space where your words used to be, empires of fear are born.